Vanakkam. Hello friends. We have been seeing about the last 7 great patrons, the Kadayelu Vallalgal, who were some of the most prominent chieftains of the Sangam age. In this episode, we will look at the history of yet another famed chieftain who came after the time period of the Great Seven. His name was Kumanan, and his rule came towards the end of the 2nd century Common Era. He ruled from Mudiramalai in the Palani hill range. Now, this Mudiramalai lay to the southeast of Udumalapettai Taluk and southwest of Palani, notes the Tamil scholar Avvai Duraisamy Pillai. The poet Perunchithiranar has sung the praise of Kumanan in quite a few Puram poems. And in one poem, he sings about all the 7 Kadayelu Vallalgal. We will look at this poem as a recap. Murasu kadippu ihupavum vaalvalai tuvaipavum அரசுடன் பொருத அண்ணல் நெடுவரை கருங்கு வெள் அருவி கல் அலைத்து ஒழுகும் பரம்பின் கோமான் பாரியும். There was Pari, the lord who fought combats with kings, as his conch blared and drums were beaten. Owner of the famed Parambu mountain, where white waterfalls thundered down tall summits. Pirangumisai kolli anda valvil vorium. And there was the mighty warrior who was great with the bow and arrow, the lord of the Kolli hills, Vori. Kari ஊர்ந்து பேரமர் கடந்த மாரி ஈகை மரப்போர் மலையனும். Malayan, who rode his swift stallion Kari, who was brave in war and as charitable as the rain clouds. Now, there are quite a few references in Sangam poems that show that the horse of Malayaman was named as Kari. And did the chieftain name his horse after himself, or was it the other way round? We can only guess. ஊராது ஏந்திய குதிரை கூர்வேல் கூவிழங்கண்ணி கொடும்பூன் எழினியும். Yelini was another name for Adiyaman Neduman Anchi, who ruled over the Kudirai Malai. As Kudirai meant a horse in Tamil, the poet uses an interesting phrase, Uradu Yendiya Kudirai, the horse that did not run, in reference to Kudirai Malai. ஈர்ந்தன் சிலம்பின் இருள் தூங்கும் நளிமுழை அருந்திரல் கடவுள் காக்கும் உயர்சிமை பெருங்கடல் நாடன் பேகனும். And there was Behan who ruled over a lofty mountain with towering peaks watched over by the gods with great might. Began ruled from the Palani hills, and we have seen about him in a few episodes previously. We have seen of the famed anecdote of Behan offering his cloak to a shivering peacock in the Palani hills, much similar to how Pari offered his golden chariot to a vine creeper, of how Began had a virtuous wife named Kannagi, and how he himself was a bit wayward and was cohorting with other women, causing great misery to his wife, and how the likes of the great poet Paranar reprimanded him. This real-life Kannagi may have inspired the character of the heroine Kannagi of Silappadigaram of Ilango Adigal. Tirundu Mozhi Mosi Paadiya Aayum. I Andiran, who belonged to an earlier time period and sung by Yenicheri Mudamosiyar in several poems, and there was Nalli who made his enemies flee, whose generosity was famed and who took it upon himself to remove the poverty of those who came in need to him. Yena aangu எழுவர் மாய்ந்த பின்றை அழிவர பாடி வர்ணரும் பிறரும் கூடி இறந்தோர் அற்றம் தீர்க்கு என விரைந்து இவன் உள்ளி வந்தனன் யானே. The great 7 are no more. They are dead and gone. Thinking of you, I swiftly come here, in the belief that you will remove the poverty of those who come to you singing pitifully. Adira yanar mudirathu kilava ivan vilangu sirappin iyelther kumana. O Lord of Mudiram mountain, where there is unending prosperity, where the bamboos growing on the slopes touch the skies, O Kumanan with great chariots, whose generosity shines everywhere, may your lifted spear be triumphant over enemies. Perunchithiranar the name of this poet literally meaning the great painter, he paints poignant scenes of the abject poverty suffered by him and his family when he goes singing in praise of Kumanan. In a Puram poem 159, Perinchitranar sings, வாழும் நாளோடு யாண்டு பல உண்மையின் தீர்தல் செல்லாது என் உயிர் என பல புலந்து கோல்கால் ஆக குறும்பல ஒதுங்கி நூல் விரித்தன்ன கதுப்பினள் கண்துயின்று முன்றில் போகா முதிர்வினள் யாயும். My old mother complains how the years have gone by and her life does not come to an end. She is wobbling around with a stick for another leg, with her hair spread like thin threads, and her eyesight having gone bad, she wobbles around. Pasanda மேனியோடு படரட வருந்தி, my wife, her body pale and filled with sorrow, suffers agony at seeing her children's hunger. குப்பை கீரை கொய்கன் அகைத்த முற்றா இழந்தளிர் கொய்து கொண்டு, she throws tender leaves of greens plucked from a garbage pile in a pot with water where there is even no salt to add. It has been ages since she had rice with buttermilk. மாசொடு குறைந்த உடுக்கையள் அறம்பழியா துவ்வாள் ஆகிய என் வெய்யோளும் என்றாங்கு இருவர் நெஞ்சமும் உவப்ப. Her clothes are torn and stained, yet she does not complain, my beloved, and runs a virtuous household. Here the poet points out how the wife stands by him through thick and thin, and he says, இருவர் நெஞ்சமும் உவப்ப, so that the hearts of my mother and my wife may rejoice. Please, O Kumana, I have come praising you for your great fame and generosity. உயர்ந்து ஏந்து மறுப்பின் கொள்கழிறு பெரினும் தவிர்ந்து விடு பரிசில் கொள்ளலென் உவந்து நீ இன்புறு விடுதியாயின் சிறிது குன்றியும் கொள்வல் கூர்வேல் குமன. O Kumanan who wields a spear, if you gift me even a ferocious elephant with lifted tusks, I will not accept it happily if you do not give it out of goodwill. But if you should offer with joy even something as small as a kundril seed, I will accept it willingly. The poet's sense of self-respect comes to the fore in these lines, where he mentions that he will not accept gifts given without goodwill. Now, what prompted Perinchitranar to sing these lines? There was another chieftain by name Veliman who had earlier patronized Perinchitranar. The only poem in the Puram works in praise of Veliman has been rendered by Perinchitranar in the Kayyara Nilai immediately after the demise of this chieftain. And there he sings, காடு முன்னினனே கள்காமுருனன் தொடி கழி மகளிரின் தொல் கவின்வாடி பாடுனர் கடும்பும் பையென்றனவே. He has gone to the burial ground. He who desired drinking liquor is dead. Bards and their families have lost their luster, like his women whose bangles have gone. Here the poet records the practice of how the bangles of widowed women were broken after the death of a husband, a practice continued to this day in native tradition. Andho அழியேன் வந்தனன் மன்ற என்னாகுவர் கொல் என் துண்ணியோரே. What will happen to those who depend on me? I am struggling with a distressed heart like a dumb and blind man whose boat has capsized on a rainy night as he drowns in the large ocean. Avala maru suri marugalin thavale nandru man thagudiyum aduve. It would be best if I die in this whirlpool of pain, in this unfathomable flood with waves. That would be a fitting end. The generous leader Veliman had a younger brother known as Ilaveliman, and on his deathbed, Veliman requested his younger brother to take care of Perinchitranar and the other bards whom he had patronized. But Ilaveliman was not as generous as his brother, and when Perinchitranar went to him after the death of Veliman, he gave very little to the poet, and that too with reluctance, adding insult to injury. Perinchitranar sang a Puram poem to Ilaveliman that goes thus: நீடு வாழ்க என்று யான் நெடுங்கடை குறுகி பாடி நின்ற பசினாள் கண்ணே. I went to his large courtyard and sang, wishing him a long life, on a day when I was hungry. He was like heavy shade on a hot summer day. When verses were planted in his ears, they were beneficial. Now that he is gone, this desire of mine is ruined and pitiful, like an empty pot left on flame. Perinchithiranar records his disappointment with Ilavaliman in no uncertain terms and continues, Puli பார்த்து ஒற்றிய களிற்றிரை பிழைப்பின் எலி பார்த்து ஒற்றாது ஆகும். If a tiger stalks and attacks an elephant and the elephant escapes, the tiger will not go in search of a rat. மலிதிரை கடல் மண்டு புனலின் இழுமென சென்று நனியுடை பரிசில் தருகம் எழுபதி நெஞ்சே துணிபு முந்துருத்தே. Like muddied river water that rushes to the ocean with great waves, rise up with fortitude, my heart. Let us leave fast and seek abundant gifts from other kings. So singing, Perinchithiranar left with his family and went to Mudirimale in search of Kumanan. Upon seeing Kumanan, Perinchithiranar renders yet another poem that captures the pitiable plight of his wife and family. Il una turattalin il marandu urayum. In our house, which has nothing, our son, with his small tuft of hair, tries to suckle from my wife's dried breasts, and there is no milk. Craving gruel and rice, he opens all the empty jars in the kitchen and bursts out crying. My wife hushes him, saying that the tiger might hear him cry and come there. She tries to pacify the child by showing the moon in the sky. This is the pitiable plight of my house, O Lord. I plead that you make her poverty go away. I will sing your praise, and your great fame will rise throughout the world. Kumanan, moved by the plight of Perinchithiranar, bestows gifts of gold, precious gems, and elephants upon him and bids him farewell. Now, what does the poet do after that? Taking his gifts, Perinchithiranar goes straight and sees Ilavaliman and sings, Iravalar Puravalai Niyum Allai. Puravalar Iravalarku Illayum Allar. You do not care for those who come in need. Look here, it's not that there are no benefactors who care for those in need. Look here, there are those who give generously to the needy. Nin ஊர் கடிமரம் வருந்த தந்து யாம் பிணித்த நெடுநல் யானை எம்பரிசில் கடுமான் தோன்றல் செல்வல் யானே. I have tied a towering fine elephant to the sacred tree that guards your town, burdening it. Accept it as my gift as I take farewell. Thus saying, Perinchithiranar gifted to Ilavaliman a fine elephant that had been gifted to him by Kumanan, thus putting Ilavaliman to shame. What the poet sings next is even more astounding as he addresses his wife, நின் நயந்து உரைனர்க்கும் நீ நயந்து உரைனர்க்கும் பன்மான் கற்பின் நின் கிளை முதலோர்க்கும் பழுந்தூங்கு முதிரத்து கிழவன் திருந்துவேல் குமணன் நல்கிய வளனே. My wife, give the wealth that Kumanan, lord of the Mudiram mountain, granted us to others. Give generously to those who love you and to those you love, to the greatly virtuous older women of our clan. Give to those who gave to you to end the fierce hunger of this family, expecting repayment only when we could. Give to the needy without any thought of who they may be, and feel free to give without asking me. Give to everybody without the thought of us living well with wealth. So even after having endured the extremes of poverty, Perinchithiranar did not try to hoard the wealth that Kumanan bestowed upon him and save for a rainy day, but he asked his wife to generously share it with less fortunate ones. What a noble soul the poet was. There are quite a few Puram poems that show how bards shared with their relatives and others whatever wealth was given to them by patron kings, a testimony to the virtues and ideals of the Tamil people of a bygone era that puts us to shame now. As Kumanan's fame spread widely, his younger brother Ilankumanan became very envious of him and decided to usurp the throne. A tussle ensued, and Kumanan gave up his throne and was banished to the forests by his brother. Now, even after that, people were continuously praising Kumanan, and probably they were chiding Ilankumanan as well, so much so that Ilankumanan wanted his brother dead. Kumanan and his close friends went into hiding into the deeper forests, and Ilankumanan ended up announcing a bounty on his brother's head. One day, a poet Perindalai Chatanar met Kumanan in the deep forests, and he too sings of his abject poverty. ஆடுநனி மறந்த கோடு உயர் அடுப்பின் ஆம்பி பூப்ப begins the poem. O Kumana of victorious battles, the tall stove in my home has forgotten cooking and is damp with mushrooms that have grown around it. My wife suffers, her eyes teary and moist, whenever she sees the face of our infant son who cries in hunger. Narpor Kumana, எண்ணிலை அறிந்தனை ஆயின் இந்நிலை தொடுத்தும் கொள்ளாது அமையலன் அடுக்கிய பன்னமை நரம்பின் பச்சை நல்யாழ் மண் அமை முழவின் வைரியர் இன்மை தீர்க்கும் குடிபிறந்தோயே. O noble Kumanan, you were born in a clan that removed the poverty of bards who came singing with their lutes and drums. I will not leave without getting something from you. Kumanan, who was in exile, had nothing to offer the bard. But then he remembered the bounty on his head. He drew out his sword and gave it to Perindalai Chatanar and requested him to sever his head and take it to his brother and collect the bounty. Perindalai Chatanar was deeply moved. He took the sword from Kumanan and left. He went straight to the court of Ilankumanan and sang a Puram poem explaining what happened. Manna ulagathu mannudal kuritor tampugal niriyi tamaindanare. In this world that doesn't last forever, those who sought to establish their name forever died, leaving their fame to last. துன்னருஞ்சிறப்பின் உயர்ந்த செல்வரின்மையின் இறப்போர்க்கு ஈயாமையின் தொன்மை மாக்களின் தொடர்பு அறியலரே. Men of great wealth who gave nothing to others failed to establish the pride of their lineage. I stood singing to the leader with strong horses and flawless reputation, who gave unlimited gifts to those who came to him. என்னாடு இழந்தனினும் நனி இன்னாது என வாழ்தந்தனனே தலை எனக்கு ஈய தன்னின் சிறந்தது பிரிது ஒன்று இன்மையின். He said, I feel useless. Letting a proud man go away without anything is worse than losing my land. So saying, he gave me his sword and offered his head, for he had nothing better to give than himself. Ilankumanan came to his senses, and the poet made peace between the brothers. This anecdote catapulted Kumanan's fame and is recorded time and again in later works like the Kongu Mandala Sadagam. Such were the noble ideals of the time. We will look into the history of yet another famed chieftain of the Sangam age in the next episode. Vanakkam.